So welcome to our area focus webinar. Today is on accounting and financial management services, or accounting. We're excited for you to join us today to explore our accounting area in the DeGroote School of Business. My name is Victoria. Some of you may have met me already. I'm the recruiter for the DeGroote School of Business. Our student experience team has created this webinar and our other area focus webinars to showcase the accounting area and our other areas of focus. So some of you are current students and you already know how it works. Your first 2 years are general. You take courses from all of our areas, and then in your third and your fourth year, you could choose an area of focus, which our applicants would probably call a specialization, but we call it an area of focus. So today we're going to learn more about accounting, and we're going to get you more excited about ways to personalize your degree from DeGroote. So today I'm joined by one faculty member and one current student. So to get us started, we're going to hear from Dr. Khalid Nainar, who's the chair of Accounting and Financial Management Services, or accounting. And in addition to being the area chair, he specializes in insider trading and ethical attitudes in experimental asset markets, energy issues, particularly oil markets, rationality of financial analyst forecasts, and accounting measures of price and volume volatility. He teaches courses in financial accounting and reporting, financial fraud and market surveillance, Islamic finance, financial statement analysis, managerial accounting at the undergraduate and graduate level. So obviously there's quite a bit. He's going to be able to answer all of your questions today about accounting. So throughout the webinar, please feel free to put your questions into the Q&A, and we'll be able to get to those at the end. So if you see the Q&A along the bottom, just use that, put any of your questions in. If we don't get them to right away, we will make sure we get to them by the end. And then after Dr. Nainar's presentation, we're going to hear from Serina, who's a third-year student at DeGroote. Serina will share more information about our DeGroote Accounting Association, or the DAA, and she'll give you ways to get involved in the DeGroote community if you're interested in accounting. So for our current students, you can probably get started right away, and for our applicants, it can be something you can look forward to next year. Now I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Nainar.
Okay, thank you. So let me share the screen at this point. Okay, so good morning, folks. I think I'm glad that a good number of you want to know a little more about accounting to make some informed choice as to where you want to specialize and so on. So as you can see, as there's many of these meetings are being held for the different areas within the business school, and it's our turn to talk about accounting. The first thing is, again, I normally would skip this first slide that talks about accounting, but you can see it's now, even though we just say accounting, what you see on the screen is really the idea of accounting and financial management services. Somebody might say, hey, what's in a name? You know, a rose by any name is still a rose. But the key idea is sometimes there is a kind of a misunderstanding of what is this material that is being taught within our area and how the industry really sees that particular area or content and so on, right? And that's the reason about 20 years ago, when I first became chair at that point in time, the first time around, we changed the name from just accounting area to accounting and financial management services, because many of the things that are really taught as, as accounting outside in the industry, people know it as finance, okay, or corporate finance. And so that's a very important idea that some of you, when you're thinking about, oh, should I do accounting or finance, to be very clear as to what is it that you really should be doing within the university confines, right? So whereas if you do what are finance, that's in the outside in the industry, that is really not seen as finance, but seen as the investment industry. So right at the outset, I want you to be focused on, when we talk about accounting and financial management services, another very close nickname in the industry for accounting that is being taught within the university is corporate finance. And so that's something that you have to keep in mind, right? So if, for example, when you're looking for jobs and so on, there are many positions where one of the big questions they'll ask you is whether you have taken tax. A good number of finance folks, they think, oh, I want to work in the finance industry and so on. And then when they interview, they ask questions about tax, they have no clue. And within the university setting, if you're going to take tax, you're really in the accounting fold. So right at the outset, there is this idea, you might think, oh, it's just semantics, but there is a lot to the name itself, okay? And that's the first thing that you should know when you're thinking about what you guys want to do. That's the first thing, okay? The name, what exactly we actually do within the area, the name matters. The next thing, okay, if I can move the slide here, is understanding this area, right? So as you see in the slide, right, the first on the top portion is just the formal, what I would call blah, blah, okay? You can read it, it's really coming from the website and so on. But what I want to focus is on what is it at the bottom of the slide, right? It is fairly short, but very substantive. What is it that we try to do, given all the different things that we do within the area to prepare our students to kind of prepare for the CPA designation, is really what you see on the slide. We are trying to make them very informed and principled business leaders, okay? So that's really the key for it. Everything else is really a kind of an afterthought and an after story kind of. So informed, so in other words, you cannot easily be moved by kind of, outbursts of people, rumors, gossip, any number of things. If you're going to be a good accounting or a business professional, you have to be fact-based, right? You can't have alternative facts. You can't be, dealing in fiction. As I often say when I deal, if you do fiction in a business school, you'll do time, right? And in accounting, it's stressed a lot. Everything gets documented, and you have to be very careful about it. So what is it in a nutshell we do within the area is to prepare students to be informed, principled leaders. Why? Because as a professional, you all have to subscribe to a code of conduct. So again, many people use the word professional in a kind of a loose way, because professional doesn't mean being an expert. Anybody can be an expert, but to be a professional, it's something much more than that. You have to subscribe to a code of conduct. And as the courses are taught, particularly when you do auditing and so on, and the other courses as well, this is something that is actually emphasized within the accounting courses, is when you make judgments, you have to make sure that you are doing it in a very honorable way, you're maintaining character, integrity, and all that. Okay, so that's something very important. So competence, technical competence is one thing, but what is required to be a professional is one step even higher. Okay, the competence is just the minimum condition. On top of it, we have to have a subscription to a code of conduct. So that is something that is emphasized in the various courses and so on. And that's really something that hopefully stands out as far as our area is concerned, because a good number of us also are we have the designation. So which means, we have to subscribe to this code of conduct. What does that really mean? If something we were to do, then the institute could say, hey, this Khalid Nainar, this guy did something, so we're going to disbar him. So they can actually take away my CPA designation. Okay, so that's something that people often don't realize. Okay, there's a difference between if you get an MBA or some degree like that, that can't be taken away because that's an earned degree. But designations can be taken away, right? Just as like a doctor can be taken away, their practice, the privilege to practice can be taken away, even though they might still have all the medical knowledge. But because they didn't do certain things properly, then they can be disbarred. Same thing in accounting, and that's kind of stressed in the various courses. That's something to think about. Okay, so if you were to do accounting, and similar thing in finance investment industry as well, if you get a CFA designations, they are very important in that context. Then moving along, the history of this area in a sense, okay, so as it said, we were asked to kind of, some prompt questions, like some of, student applicants, okay, what is it that has happened in the past 5 years, as what you see on the slide. There's been faculty renewal, okay, there have been some newer faculty have been added, fresh new blood, and they bring in new perspectives and so on. That's something that's happened. So you will actually meet people within the accounting area. We have some, unlike certain other areas, we actually have like a pyramid. Okay, so we have somewhat like older folks like me, then you have some younger guys who just maybe just a few years older than you guys, and so there's been a faculty renewal. Not only that, we also had a PhD program that was launched a few years ago, and we had a couple of cohorts go through. What does that really mean from your standpoint? Well, lately, we also have had started an accounting research center. And so if some of you are interested, there could be some summer research projects that might come along the way. And those are possibilities that some of you can consider. And then, of course, the other big thing is because much of our course material is tailored towards the, preparing students for the CPA exam and so on, CPA designation. So we have to subscribe. Okay, we have to make sure the courses that are being taught, you can't just wave hands and say, oh, academic freedom and this is what the students need to know. But we are governed in a sense that we have to tailor it to the competency map from the CPA Canada, okay, and there has been a new competency map, and in fact, there's been an iteration, the new thing about data analytics. So those are some of the things that you would become familiar with that is actually gets done in the area. Then the other prompt question was, okay, what about, okay, prospectively, next 10 years? Well, again, the same thing. There's going to be faculty renewal because people might retire and we might have some more new blood come through and so on, right? And then the other emphasis would be that even when I talked about earlier on about informed individuals, and the question becomes, what is the information? So often people think, oh, accounting is just, financial statements, numbers, but increasingly, if some of you have had a chance to, as internships or other things, if you're exploring, okay, you can see some of the very cutting edge businesses in finance and, in the industry, generally speaking, are not just relying on financial data, they're increasingly relying on non-financial data, right? A few years ago, the big buzzword was about big data and all that kind of stuff, but that's all like a passage, just like a buzzword. But a more substantive thing to think about is instead of just looking at financial data, you might also want to have alternative data, right? So if you're think about the current pandemic we're all experiencing and so on, a lot of people could have picked up signals, right? Okay, so to how it might have an economic impact just by looking at the cluster of cases that was happening in China. People are monitoring certain blogs and so on, and then immediately they are able to get that information out, right? So you have to, going forward, what is it that's going to happen next 10 years and more is the increasingly the importance of this alternative data is very critical, right? And then the idea of technology, right? So people really, and again, as a younger generation, you probably are all swimming in technology. Many of you probably came of age. You probably just, whenever you thought about your worldview was being formed, the internet was already there, right? So even in the internet, you have seen social media and so on. So in the last so many years, so many things are changing very fast. Some platforms die, some newer platforms are coming. So increasingly, again, that's something that the area itself will be emphasizing in the courses itself, the platforms. And that's what the institute is also kind of pushing towards when they talk about data analytics, right? So there are two very important words in that phrase, data and analytics, okay? So what are the different ways of analyzing? And then what are the different kinds of data and what platforms? Again, that would be something that you would see. In fact, you guys are in your second year, you're going to third year. So again, within a year or so, in some of the courses, you might actually see some of these things being incorporated. So that's actually as far as the history and the prognosis where the area is headed. Some real world examples, right? As we often teach at different levels, all this I can talk about, you can read the books and so on, but nothing makes a connection from a student perspective as to how they can think about how they're going to function in the industry going forward, unless they're able to relate to some real industry examples. That's what you see in the slide, right? So what is it that we do in the different courses in accounting? Probably just take a look at what happened in Laurentian University, right? You should all be thankful that you're at McMaster, because if you are a student in Laurentian, a good number of them are anxious, not just about the pandemic and so on, but increasingly whether the university will still be open and so on. Why? What was the problem? It was really a big accounting issue right there. They just used what we often talk about. Some of you might have done 1AA3. Again, this is a webinar, so I can't, ask on the things, okay, what's going on and so on. You can't see this class, but they are the students in a sense, the audience. But the idea is they violated the entity concept. They basically had the same bank account, okay, to keep the research funds as well as the general operating funds, with the result that they use the research funds to pay off operating expenses, okay, utilities and so on. And that is extremely a big no-no. So that's something that you will talk about, or it's emphasized in the accounting courses, that entity concept is inviolable. It's very important. You can't commingle accounts, right? It's a very fundamental idea. Then the other very current example is what's happened to Citibank. Okay, inadvertently, you can see that's how it's a legal case, and you can probably follow that case and do a Google search. Citibank has just lost that money. They can't get that money back. Okay, again, take the nuances of what is it. Okay, so normally speaking, you can get the money back because of what they call unjust enrichment clause and so on. But in this was a very special case because these guys are supposed to be sophisticated individuals and investors in institutions. Just follow the case. So again, these are the kind of things that gets talked about in accounting class, that when you talk about internal control, it's not just some abstract idea, but at the end, it's a dollars and cents. Sometimes some major boo-boos do happen in industry, and you have to watch out for that. And you learn from some of these things. The another major about 10 years ago, or maybe 15 years now, is what happened at the height of the financial crisis. Just on the day the Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, a German bank, and you can see, KfW Bank, okay, they actually wired funds on the same day. That again was a total ignorance. So before you do anything, you have to make sure that you should at least know what's happening on that business day, for example. So one of the things I would strongly encourage you guys, doesn't matter whether you do accounting or any other subject, but so long as you want to be a good business professional going forward, please read the newspapers and be aware of what's going around you. Because if that were the case, and if those guys in Germany, they had known about Lehman Brothers had just declared bankruptcy, they would not have hired upwards almost close to $1 billion. Okay, it's a very important idea, okay, to know what's actually happening. And then the last one is something that we often do in a tax class. It has a very fancy name, double Irish Dutch sandwich. So things like that get talked about, which are tax vehicles. What is the thing? Okay, it's nothing to do with food, or it's not that I'm hungry or anything. Double Irish means there are two Irish companies, and Dutch means the third company is a Dutch company. The idea is this was really a tax strategy that was pioneered at Apple. Everybody thinks, oh, Apple is the one with iPod and iPhone and so on. But in the business world, people recognize it for this tax strategy, which was imitated by lots of other companies later on, which basically saved them that they didn't have to pay US taxes on their overseas sales. So there are things like this you will kind of learn some nifty things about, okay, in accounting classes, okay? And you can see whatever gets taught has some very real world implications, and it has some very strong kind of, how should I put, gives you foundation for success in the business world. Then moving along, what are some of the deliverables? Again, prompt questions. So when I was doing this, kind of filling up this slide, populating these things, I was just feeling like a student applicant. Oh, I'm applying to McMaster, and these guys are giving me this prompt question. Alexis is good at these things, okay? So what are some of the common concepts, right? These are first things. So if you were to do accounting, you will learn what are the bookkeeping, the first principles. Now, again, in many a context now, it's all automated and so on, but still it's always good if you're going to be a senior manager to know where the data are springing from, okay? What's the origin? Still the concept of origin pedigree is very important, because as one of the very kind of new subject with coming of importance, both for research and in industry, from a practical standpoint, is this whole idea of cybersecurity, right? So when you want to ensure security of certain things, you really need to know the entire chain, the data chain, where everything is starting from and where it's headed and so on. Only then you can ensure the security of the stuff. So the idea is then, in a financial sense, from an industry standpoint, you have to know how accounts, how data is actually comes into existence. That's why bookkeeping is still important. We talk about that. And again, certain things, when you teach financial accounting, then we often emphasize that the theological roots of bookkeeping, for example. So people often think, oh, accounting, it's all money and so on. But some of the things started in medieval Europe, and you should know the strong religious underpinnings for bookkeeping. Now, again, I hope I piqued your interest. Again, you can talk about it when we do it in class and so on. Then there's other things. What are some of the concepts? Things like opportunity cost, relevant cost, sunk cost, allocated cost. And the biggest idea is about representational reality, right? So by the time you're done with the accounting courses, one very important thing that you'll pick up is all this data is just spinning, is a narrative in a sense. So from a very analytical standpoint, it's almost like being in a linguistic class. You're actually telling stories, right? So what is really people are interested in is often trying to find out is what exactly is taking place within a business. So accounting data, financial data is just spinning a reality. And that's something that you have to keep in mind. And that's what the courses emphasize. There's a lot of assumptions and judgments that takes place. And you have to understand that. So if you see $100 million loss or $100 million profit, you have to know it's not like taking a temperature reading in the natural sciences, okay? Like today, the temperature is going to be 16 or 20 degrees, okay? By 2 o'clock or something, I'm told. That's 20 degrees, doesn't matter, okay, whoever does it. But in accounting context, in the industry business context, the number could be all over the place because of assumptions being made. And you will have to kind of think about, okay, who made the assumptions? What were their motivations? And what are the different assumptions? What are possible? Is it legitimate? And things of that nature. Those kind of things get talked about in the classes at different levels, right? That's something that you'll pick up. And again, even if you don't want to be an accountant, it's a very important life skill, okay, to be able to cut through some of these kinds of issues in industry, okay? And then why this particular area at DeGroote? Okay, so again, if you want to be a multimedia kind of thing, because what makes us special is because if you do accounting, you can do anything, right? So as I want to do it in my more flippant side, I said, oh, maybe now there should be a music that should play from the music group America. You know, you can do magic kind of thing, whatever you desire, all that kind of stuff. Because accounting in a context of a firm is really the department where, as the old saying used to talk about, all roads lead to Rome, right? Because that's where the power center is. So likewise, if somebody spends time in accounting, you will fully understand what the firm is all about. So it's a very powerful kind of a work experience. So that's something that you can think about, right? That's what makes our area special. Then beyond the first and second year, what is it that you will be doing in this class? As you see in the slide, intermediate accounting, financial reporting, that's something very fundamental body of knowledge that is actually required, not only to becoming a CPA, getting the CPA designation, but also, and again, if some of you have questions, we can answer that even later on during the Q&A session. Even if somebody wants to go into the investment industry and you really are interested in the CFA designation, Chartered Financial Analyst, even there, that designation has 3 levels, levels 1, 2, and 3. And for levels 1 and 2, it's really accounting stuff, okay? So that's something that you have to keep in mind, that even if you're bound for finance, and a lot of people realize later on, oh, I want to do this and I need this today, and then they come back to school to do accounting courses. So that's why I said, if you do accounting, you can do anything. You can be in the finance, okay, accounting area, in that field, get the CPA designation, or even if you're heading into the investment industry and want the CFA designation, you still, with accounting, you can do all that stuff, right? And then, of course, auditing, and then the idea of tax. A lot of people used to think of tax as just a compliance function, meaning I just have to follow rules. In fact, you can see we are in the middle of March, and so by April deadlines for tax return, people often think, oh, I have to follow rules. Increasingly, because of the complexity of the industry, tax also has become a profit driver. Depending on how you structure the tax, vehicles, for example, you can actually generate profits for the company, right? That is where the double Irish Dutch sandwich part comes in, right? And then, of course, what are some of the non-commerce electives you can take? Any student who comes up to me and asks, I would strongly encourage, please take more courses in economics, okay? Take courses in psychology, math, computer science, all those things are going to make you a better person. Okay, so try to resist the temptation. I would use that again. I want to emphasize the word temptation. Please do not take bird courses. You're wasting your time. Okay, so go back to that concept we talked about, opportunity cost. Try to value your time and tuition money. Take proper courses, which will actually make you a better professional in the long term. Okay, so once again, as a general rule, please don't take bird courses. I know many of you do, but resist that temptation. Okay, and then beyond the classroom, I think what are some of the common trajectories? Of course, a very common pathway, and I think our good student, Serina, she can talk more about it, okay, from her perspective, her experience as well. Many of them go into accounting firms, public practice, and so on. That's not the only way out. You can also go into the industry. In fact, many people after a couple of years in the accounting firm jump and go into the industry, and then they follow the trajectory, become a CFO, and then on to a CEO. It's a very well kind of trodden path at this point. Many of them are also going into startups, right? Because remember, as I said, all roads lead to Rome. Within the firm, all roads lead to accounting. So accounting guys are in a startup situation are very important, because how to get the money, where the money is going, all those things need to be talked about. And then, of course, business analysts are standard things, and data scientists, because as I said, people need to be very proficient in alternative data and technical proficiency going forward. So data science is also part of, in a sense, good accounting student can enter that field as well. Designations, we can talk more about this, okay, in the Q&A session. So I already talked about CPA, Chartered Professional Accountant, CFA, Chartered Financial Analyst, and then CFP, which is basically, I think, is Chartered, I think professional financial planning, I think, yeah, okay, so it's Chartered Financial Planner. I think that's the correct term. So these are some of the designations that you can try to aspire to, okay, if you do accounting courses. With that, that takes me then, okay, is to what are the students doing? And maybe I'll just hand over to Serina at this point, and the floor is yours, Serina, take over, yeah.
Thanks, Professor Nainar. So my name is Serina Rocci, and just a bit about myself. I am in third year and my area of focus is accounting. I'm just going to share my screen because I have a little PowerPoint ready for you guys. Here we go. As I said before, I'm the co-president of the DAA this year. It's honestly been an amazing experience, so that's why I'm here to talk to you all about the great opportunities that the DAA has. So just a quick overview, the DeGroote Accounting Association this year held over 15 events. We were able to secure over 13 sponsors, and this year we had over 150 members. I think we had around 172. And with the DAA, we really strive to provide our members with opportunities for professional development. And this year we really focused on networking events and case competitions because we knew it was going to be extremely hard for students to kind of make these connections on their own, given the circumstances. So in the end, we really strive to create a community to support our members and each other, both as students and future professionals. So moving on to a couple of our events, because I know students love coming to the events and really getting down to what we do. So this past year, the events usually do stay pretty consistent year to year with a few overarching themes. So this year we did hold our annual CPA night. This is one of our most popular events of the year. It's right before recruitment season for public accounting firms. And it's really just a great way to meet a lot of different reps from a lot of different firms. It's actually how I was able to get my foot in the door at a public accounting firm. And I strongly hold like this event close to like my heart because it's a way that I was able to get involved. Then we have our mentorship program, and this is really catered to first and second years like yourselves, or if you're coming into accounting into the DeGroote School of Business next year. And this is a way to kind of get your foot in the door with a professional in the industry or a public accounting firm. And this year we had around 25 professionals help us out with this mentorship program. And it's really just a great way to start getting to know the industry and seeing what real life accountants do outside of school. We had our debits and credits case competition for the second year in a row, and this is also open to first and second years. And you guys are given your own division, so it's not as daunting as, say, a full year case competition would be. A lot of students find this as their entryway to get into case competitions. So we will definitely be continuing this one in the future because it's not as daunting as a regular case competition most students find. So this is held in November, right before exam season. Now moving on to our winter events, some of them which we just held, we have our mentorship program meet back, and this is the first year we did this this year, just because we found that students really were having a hard time connecting with their mentors. And in this way, it kind of just gave them another opportunity to meet each other. So in this, you're obviously able to meet your mentor again, but you're also able to meet other mentors and kind of grow your network even more. We also had our LinkedIn workshop in February, which was held by Danielle Little. And this is just a way to kind of enhance your LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is a really important part of networking and becoming a business student today, and kind of just show you what the key aspects and how to enhance your LinkedIn profile. Then we had our summer conference panel in February, so just this past month. And this is a way for students to get to know what the summer conference is all about. I didn't know about it until last year, and it's a conference that the Big Four hold in around early July. And it kind of gets your foot in the door for future opportunities. So whether that's summer internship or full-time opportunities if you're in third or fourth year, it really gets your foot in the door for that. And it's a great experience. It's a lot of fun. I know when it was in person, a lot of people had amazing things to say about it. So that's just a bit more information. We got Big Four reps to come out and talk about the opportunities that their firm possesses. And then we had our Women in Accounting Conference and our Fast-Paced to the Case competition, which we'll be holding March 20th. This is just one of our biggest case competitions, I think, in DeGroote. It's a great way for students to kind of get integrated into case competitions. There's managers as judges, so it's a great way to kind of build your network and really showcase your potential abilities to potential employers. So that is a bit about our events. We also have other events that I didn't talk about, but these are just some of our most notable events and events that are catered towards our first and second years. So then just a bit about our sponsors. You can expect to meet reps from all of these firms. So we have the Big Four here, we have some industry. We do have a little bit of everything, depending what you want to go into. So it is a great way to kind of meet these reps and see what their firms are about and see what firm really holds the same values as you. And then moving on to other opportunities. So there is the PSAP program that we really work closely with. Faith Pember is a member of the PSAP program, and she is at a lot of our events, usually just talking about the PSAP program. Then there's also the Volunteer Tax Squad at Max Money Center. And you can also reach out to small accounting firms in your community to kind of just get that experience, that first round experience. And then how to actually get involved with the DeGroote Accounting Association other than just being a general member. So it's a great time for us to actually be having this little conference because we are opening our executive applications probably within the next week. So keep an eye out for that. I'll share our socials in the next slide, but that will be coming out very soon. I highly, highly recommend taking a look at that and applying because I find that it's a great way to start getting involved in the DeGroote community other than just being a general member and attending the events. You really get to plan the events and start seeing like the behind the scenes and getting a sense of what the DeGroote community really is. For those of you, I don't know if there's any in here, but that are in high school still and are going to be coming into first year next year, we hire our first year reps in September of 2021. I highly recommend this too. This is what I did when I was in first year, and I've been on the DAA ever since. So I've really grown with the DAA throughout my university experience, and I can't advocate it for it more. It's really changed my university experience, and I highly, highly recommend looking out for that once you're here. And then just to get in touch with us, here's all of our social media links and handles. Pretty straightforward. It's all DeGroote Accounting, and some of them have association at the end. I know most of our first and second years are more in tune with Instagram. So our Instagram is just at DeGroote Accounting. We're really, really active on Instagram. We're answering DMs every single day. We're always answering students' questions. So if you have any questions and you want to reach out to us the quickest, that's probably the best way to get a hold of us is our Instagram DM. Or you can always email. That's my email is president@degrooteaccounting.com if you wanted to ask a more in-depth question or any comments or anything you have like that. So that's a bit about the DeGroote Accounting Association. I'm going to stop my share now. But yeah, that's a bit about us. Yeah.
Thanks, Serina. So we have some good questions now in the Q&A. So if anyone does have some questions, make sure you put them in the Q&A now. Some of them have been answered. If you go into the Q&A, you can go to the answered section, but we'll ask a few of them now. So an interesting question, what personality does an accountant have?
Victoria, I think I typed in the answer, so it doesn't show up. I mean, like, you can read it out. Yeah, you're a better speaker than I.
Good question. How do we know which service line best suits us? Do you type in the answer? I think you may have typed in the answer.
I'm sorry. I think maybe you are not seeing the chat box. I thought I responded to all of them. Whatever I could see, I typed it in while Serina was speaking. So it's not showing up in the chat, but again.
It's not for me, but it could be for other people.
Oh, really? I didn't reply. I thought I replied it to everybody, but okay, I can read it up, but okay, so that's fine. So let's start with the first question then. Okay, so what was the first question?
The first one was, what personality does an accountant need to have?
Okay, I think I typed in basically saying somebody has to be very thorough as they do their work. They have to be persistent. Okay, they just can't give up. Somebody might distract them to put them off the trail. They can't do that. And then most importantly, you have to have people skills. You have to be outgoing. Okay, a lot of people think, oh, accountant means, oh, introvert, looking at the book. Contrary to all that popular perception, good accountants are pretty outgoing. Okay, if you don't have the personality, as you often say, then you can become an actuarial person, right? So that's the difference between an actuary and an accountant. An accountant is an outgoing actuary. Okay, so there you go, with just a little humor for today. Okay, what's the other question? So then, and maybe I can just. Okay, Serina, you have anything to say? I think you probably have been dealing with accounting folks and things like that. Would you agree with that? Accountants generally have to be outgoing, right? They can't be introverts, correct?
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with like clients, you definitely want to be able to master like the art of conversation and be able to talk to people effectively. Definitely not a like sit at your desk job type of job.
That's right. In fact, that's a very common misperception that, for accounting, you can just, put glasses and hide away in a back office. That's contrary. Modern good accountants, okay, they are always on the job, on the move. They're meeting clients, and you have to have, as she just said, to master the art of conversation, you should have some visual skills so that when you're having all these fancy dinners, you should be able to visualize transactions on dinner napkins. I'm sure once a pandemic is behind us, we'll start to have all these dinners and lunches. So you have to really pick up that skill to draw. Okay, so very important kind of a thing. So those are all the kind of things that are needed to be a good accountant and a good business professional. So what is the second question? I think then maybe I can just read things here. I think one, it said,
Sure.
will this area? Yeah, go ahead, Victoria. Yes.
If you want to read out the answers in the order you want, or I can ask them to you, whatever you prefer.
You can just ask and then I can, because they are.
Okay. So a quick question is, how do you balance work and study after graduation? How many hours do I need to study a week to prepare for a CPA capstone 1 and 2 in the CFE?
Yeah, I said, well, it varies from student to student, depending on, your talent, innate abilities you have, and then, the amount of dedication you have in order to pass the CPA exam on the first try and all that, and where you're actually working. Is it in an industry? Is it in a public accounting firm where they often have training programs and so on? So it will vary from person to person and their context. But generally speaking, about 2 to 3 hours a day is probably normally recommend. Yeah.
Perfect. The next question, will senior year accounting courses recall the basic accounting concepts before diving into the in-depth accounting concepts?
The answer is yes. Okay, but it's not as if we do a remedial program, but I mean, there will be mention. Yeah, there would be things that will be mentioned. Okay, but hopefully everybody will remember, because learning the basic concepts, as I often tell students, is like learning a bicycle when you are probably in grade 3. Okay, even when you're in grade 11 or maybe even at work, if you're not been bicycling for some time, but once you learn bicycling, you'll always know it, right? It's the same thing, basic concepts, on the assumption that you understood the concept. Okay, but if you're mechanically doing certain things, then of course everything will be lost. Okay, so in your first and second year, as you go through these things, try to understand the material, so then you don't need to remember anything, because you will know it in your system. Okay. Yeah.
Perfect. And the next question is, how do we know which service line best suits us?
Well, okay, that's what's showing up on my screen. I had typed in the answer, that was the last one. So you need to research further and talk to people in the industry as Serina was just talking about a few minutes ago, that I attend all the student networking events and so on. So often people think, oh, why do I need to go to a networking event? Okay, it's not just about getting a job. Okay, yes, at some point that is this kind of a goal, but it is also to understand what's happening in the industry, what's happening in a certain firm. So what we talk, often people talk about the small talk. Believe me, the small talk is actually a very big talk, okay, because it enables you to understand your environment. So that's how you pick these things up. And again, also come and talk to the faculty members. Every one of us, we have office hours, even when you're not taking classes with us. I think not just about me, all the others as well in the faculty. You just talk to faculty members. You learn a lot about their own experiences, how they landed up where they are and so on. And that's one way to kind of understand, as to what you should be doing and things like that. Okay, so just like going to a library and reading books, okay, try to walk into faculty offices when their doors are open and have small chat. Some of the small chat could turn out to be very big chats. You might change your career, all kinds of good things can happen. Okay, so that's really the importance of being in a university like McMaster. So in a nutshell, talk to people everywhere.
Thank you. The next question, you may have typed in an answer to this. So if corporate banking is the end goal, is accounting and financial management, would that be the best option?
That's right. Okay, so I would always say that, because accounting is like the foundation. Okay, you can have 100-story buildings and so on, but if the foundation is not good, you're not going to get even 5 stories. Even if you construct, it might fall down. So even if you want to go into the investment industry and your goal is really, I want to be a hotshot hedge fund manager, believe me, you take some accounting courses and then build on taking a finance courses, you'll be that much better. Even if you talk to my good colleague, Dr. Chamberlain, the finance chair, he'll tell you if you're going to go to CFA, you have to do the intermediate accounting courses and also the advanced financial accounting courses. Okay, that's what will enable you to understand how the numbers are being presented. Okay, many people shortchange themselves and later on, then they run and take courses in the evening. Okay, these courses like a remedial thing, the intermediate 1, intermediate 2, and advanced financial. Okay, yeah.
And the next question is, if you're working towards a CPA, do you need to take all of the accounting courses offered, and how many are there?
Okay, so you basically, well, you have to do all that. Plus, I think we talk about there are 10 courses, okay, in accounting, including 1AA3 and 2AB3 that I teach. And then after that, you also have to take a course, something called the GDPA. Okay, there's a diploma program where there are about 8 courses. You have to do that, and then there are 2 more courses you have to do at the institute, and then you're ready to sit for the CFA exam. Okay, that's it.
Perfect. So the next question, if accounting is one of the areas of focus, can we take more than one area of focus? So if there's, how many courses should we take in accounting to prepare for the CPA? And if they do that, they may only have 4 or 5 courses remaining to choose.
I think I probably kind of punt that ball to Greg. Greg, maybe you should step in and answer that question. Yeah. Because this kind of is more of a programmatic kind of a thing. Basically, I think the student is asking, can they do a double major type story? Yeah.
So if you are interested in doing the grad diploma and finishing all of your accounting requirements within the program, within your 4 years, depends on which year you have entered the program. So the good news is a couple of years ago, we were able to add sufficient elective space for students to be able to complete all of their accounting requirements. And the even better news is for incoming students, you'll have even more electives. So you'll be able to complete all of the accounting requirements as well as courses from other areas. So you might be interested in augmenting your accounting studies with marketing or finance or HR. So you will have some space to be able to do that. So that's the good news. So typically in your 4th year, you're taking 4 accounting courses. And then in your 5th year, you're taking 5 accounting courses. So with those electives, that prepares you to either move into our grad diploma, which is a condensed program for once you have graduated your undergrad, that leads right into the capstone modules with CPA. Or you can take your master's degree and take courses with CPA through their professional education program, which will also lead into the capstone modules. But the advantage of the grad diploma is that you're able to do it with your current classmates, as well as do it in a much faster and more efficient manner.
Good, thank you.
And the next question, if someone is a first-year student, what are some things they should be doing going forward if they're interested in pursuing accounting?
Well, one of the first things I would do is I hope you listen very carefully to what Serina had to say and when she was talking. I think you have to first maybe become a card-carrying member of the DeGroote Accounting Association. Just a plug for the student association. That's point number one. Maybe I said it in a flippant manner, but I can't overstate the importance of that, okay? Because many things you learn by osmosis and so on. So immediately you will learn, you'll have seniors, they will tell you what to do, what not to do, what we often call as the unofficial calendar. So I can talk about, Greg can talk about the courses you need to do, but they will actually tell you, the experiences and so on. That's the first thing you need to do, is to become a member of the DeGroote Accounting Association. Once you do that, then I think you'll start going to the networking events and so on. So then that'll give you a flavor for, oh, maybe I should apply for an internship in a public accounting firm or something. So and then you'll start to have all these, shall we say, plans that you would make, okay? And so that will tell you what you should be doing just about right after third year, and before the fourth year, you should get some work experience and so on. So all that cannot happen in an instant. It has to be, you have to plan these things. So right after the first year, which is where you guys are, first thing is become a member of the DeGroote Accounting Association and talk to your fellow students who have been through that path. Okay, that would be my sincere suggestion to you guys and recommendation. And maybe Serina, if you want to add something, you might want to add. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just echo what you said. I think it's really, really important to get involved in student associations like the DAA. Like you said, not only does it provide like opportunities to network with business professionals, but I was also able to expand my network within like students. So I became acquainted with upper year students, and it just became a lot easier for me to go through university, having those people that just went through it a year before me and able to give me so much advice and so much like mentorship. It's honestly an invaluable experience that I gained through my university experience.
Very good.
Great, thank you. The next question, is the CMA still a designation that can be achieved?
Well, I mean, at this point, no. Maybe I can kind of throw the ball to our good friend Greg here. He's a CMA. Go ahead, Greg. You might want to answer, and then right now, I'll let you answer that.
Sure. So maybe 6 years ago now, there were 3 designating bodies for accounting, but they have amalgamated, and all of the legacy people that were already in one of those programs have made their way through the program. So they have each closed and being replaced with this new CPA designation, which is now one stream. So I myself am a CPA, but I came through as a CMA, which is management accounting focus. I think Dr. Nainar previously was a CGA and now is a CPA as well. So those programs, individual programs, are not available any longer. So now it's the one path forward. So that's the common designation across Canada now.
Okay, but it just Matthew, I think that's the question was asked by him. But the key thing to recognize is that within Canada, we now have only one designation CPA because of the amalgamation, but the CMA is still there in the US. Okay, so that's why some of you might actually see this on social media and other things. Those things are still there in the US. Okay, they are still separate. They have a CPA, which is a certified public accountant, and then they still have the CMA, certified management accountant. That's still there. Okay.
Thank you. The next question is, how would you describe the job market for accountants? Is there a high demand?
Certainly. I mean, I think you just take a look at it, because as I often tell people, the first people often to get hired in any kind of small things are somebody who knows numbers, who can handle stuff. They are accountants. And if a firm goes bankrupt, the last guys to be thrown out are also accountants. So there you can see. So in a sense, accounting, particularly if you're good at it and you have a designation, you really don't have to worry about, losing jobs and so on, because it's a lifelong professional. It's just like being a doctor, okay? So there are always people will be getting sick. So you're not going to be poverty stricken if you become a medical doctor. So likewise, if you ever become an accountant and the designation, you're never going to worry about being poverty stricken or losing jobs and so on, but rather you might be moving from one job to another on your way up. Okay, and that's really is a general feeling. Okay, that's all I can say. So again, the key thing is, again, get the designation, because that's really a stamp of approval. In a sense, it tells you that you are somebody who is competent at many of these business functions. Okay, you can do things. And then most importantly, you're subscribed to a code of conduct. Okay, that's a very important thing. Again, some of you will not fully internalize, you will not see the value of it just because I'm saying it, but once you are at work, you will know the meaning of what I just said. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is it too late to get my foot in the door at the accounting route if I'm near the end of my second year? And this is professional development wise.
Well, I will never always say it's never too late. Okay, so it's now the fact that you realize, okay, we have few, couple of semesters, it doesn't really mean anything. Okay, so I can just maybe punt the ball to Serina. Maybe she knows of students who have actually moved even in the third year. She is actually nodding, so maybe she has a case thing to talk about. Go ahead.
Yeah, not as like a specific like case per se, but I know a lot of students just getting involved in their third and fourth year, sometimes even in their fourth year, and they're still able to pursue their accounting career. It's just once you realize that you do want to pursue accounting, I'd say get involved as quickly as you can and start attending those events and getting involved in the community. Just because the more you know, the easier it's going to be to find like a potential job. And just kind of to know about the industry a little bit more, because when you are networking with the professional firm, the reps, they do talk about accounting. So it's definitely good to like know what accounting is and how the industry looks outside of school. But it's definitely not too late. It's never too late. I would say just get involved. Next year or even in the summer, I don't know if you guys saw, but we do hold summer events as well. So always keep your eye out on our Instagram page. If you have Instagram, or Facebook is more your scene. Facebook as well, we post on there, but always just keep an eye out. We're always offering things, but no, it's never too late.
Thank you. So we're almost out of time and we still have some questions. So we'll try to get through one or two more. If we can't get through them today though, please feel free to email us at BuzzCom or put it into the Discord channel and we can make sure we can still get your questions answered. So another question, a student is interested in both accounting and investment banking, corporate finance. What would you recommend to someone who's unsure of which one to pursue? Is it easier to go from accounting to finance or vice versa?
Okay, I would always say that it's easier to go from accounting to finance because we often, as a general rule, okay, accounting is more of a mother discipline and finance is more of an offshoot, like it came from economics, monetary economics, and so on. So it's easier to go from accounting to finance, okay, not the other way around. And in fact, there are a lot of people who get their CPA and they also get their CFA, as I told you. So long as you have all the material to write for this CPA designation, you are really ready to write the levels 1 and level 2, the CFA. In fact, any student who comes and talks to me, I often tell them, guys, get your CFA as well, level 1 and 2. And then later on, if your interest comes in, you do some of the advanced finance topics like options, futures, and so on. You can also write the level 3 and also become a CFA. Okay, so, but the opposite, okay, it often doesn't hold true, okay? Because many people who do CFA, they may not have the tax knowledge and so on. So then it becomes very difficult to go evening classes and things of that nature. But accounting to finance, I think, is easier. Okay, and that's what I would recommend. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. The next question, other than our MBA program, are there any other options or programs that are relevant to the accounting and finance world? And what would moving into one of these programs look like afterwards for an undergrad?
Well, I mean, when you think about other programs, again, there are a lot of things like masters in finance, those kinds are there. But again, the key thing is, if you get the designation, I would always recommend that people should get a designation more than an MBA. Increasingly, I know from own personal, some cases and so on, increasingly in the industry, these days, everybody's not going for the credential, but you really need to prove the value of what you bring to the table, right? So in that context, I think just a designation is sufficient, and then basically your track record of making transactions and wheeling and dealing, okay? That's so just because an MBA, because MBAs are generalist degrees, and in fact, you can see the market is churning over. So traditionally, we used to have 2-year MBAs, and increasingly, remember one of the concepts we talked about was the concept of opportunity cost. So when you come across in class, you should know what is the opportunity cost of getting a graduate degree, an MBA degree. It's not just the tuition fees. If you were to basically get a job, you're foregoing all the earnings for a couple of years plus other things. By the time you factor in, for many of the schools, people feel there's even a negative return to an MBA, okay? Again, unless you go to the very top schools and or you have contacts and so on. So that's something to think about. So the way the industry is changing, I think, that is a very moot point, okay? Maybe 15 years ago, if I were to advise, I'd say, yeah, get an MBA degree. But now you have to be careful. Just get the designation. That still has value because it's a lifetime story, okay? And you get a networking, right? Because at that point in time, you have the institute batting for you as well. So that's what I would suggest.
Thanks. So if there's any other
further questions, up and talk later on.
Yeah, if there's any other
sorry.
questions, send us an email to @buzzcom or go to Discord. But I think a good final question to end with for both of our panelists is, why did you choose accounting?
Why did I choose accounting? Maybe I should punt the ball to Serina. Go ahead, Serina. Maybe I will hear why you chose accounting.
Yeah, so I chose accounting because I like the stability it provides, and having that, I'm going to pursue my CPA designation. Hopefully I get it. But it really does provide opens a lot of doors in the business sense, as I've been told. I'm only speaking of what I've been told. But yeah, it provides a lot of stability, and it allows you to kind of just see a lot of areas of business, and kind of gives you that credibility in the business world. Not even if you're only focusing in accounting, but say you move into finance or marketing, it really has that letter of approval beside your name always. So that's why I'm pursuing it. And also I do enjoy accounting. I've enjoyed accounting since I took it in high school. I really enjoy the number side of it and kind of the analytical side of it. So that's why I chose accounting.
And now that question, so just to finish off, in my own personal case, I was actually in a PhD program in economics. I was almost about to graduate. Then the market in the US had collapsed at that point. I'm telling a story from the 80s. And somebody said, hey, why don't you do accounting? I said, what accounting? Some of us don't think much of accounting, but then really the market conditions led me to do accounting at that late stage. And here I am as a faculty member in accounting. So accounting, as I said, is almost the first job that a company creates, and is also the last job that happens as well. Okay, so that's what I think. It's a good thing to do accounting. Okay. But I think it's very valuable opinion. Yeah.
I think that's a good way to end it. So if anyone has any questions, send us an email at BuzzCom, follow DIA on social media. We hope this was helpful to you, and we have a few more area focused webinars to sign up for. So if you're not convinced after today to sign up for accounting, feel free to attend those as well. Thank you for coming.
Bye now, guys. Yeah.